So let's take a look at what you need to do to manage your internet connection. Well, the starting point will be to find out where your internet connection comes into your network. Now typically, it will connect to your firewall, so it will connect to the external interface, and the internal interface of the firewall will connect to a network switch. This network switch may be your core switch, it may be part of a stack of switches in your computer room, but you need to find the switch that your firewall connects to. Ideally, if you use a proxy server, it is connected to the same switch. It makes for the setup much easier if both the firewall and your proxy server are on the same switch. We download and install LangGuardian software, we put it on the server, and what you need to do to get it up and running is really you just need to get two network connections. One network connection needs to go to the same switch where your firewall or your proxy server connects. The second interface of the LangGuardian can go to any other switch in your network. This is the interface we're going to give an IP address, so that can go anywhere. So really, from a cabling point of view, you just need to get two cables. One goes to the switch where your firewall connects. The other cable, you can really plug it into any switch on your network. It's the one which we're going to give an IP address. It's used for the management of the system. So once you've got your cabling set up, you've got everything plugged in, the next thing you need to do is set up a span port or port mirroring. So what we need to do is we need to port mirror this port here, which is where the firewall comes in. We also need to, in this case, because we use a proxy port, mirror the proxy port, and we send a copy of that data then to where our sensor is plugged in. So this interface here is known as the LangGuardian sensor port. So we send a copy of the data to that port. This arrangement doesn't interfere in the operation of your network. It's not inline. Should this cable be plugged out, it doesn't interfere with people's internet connections because we're getting a copy of data. The monitoring or the span setup on the switch will just send us a copy of the data. So it's a very non-intrusive way of monitoring what's happening on your internet connection. So that's what you need to do to have a simple setup so you can monitor all internet activity on your network. So let's take a look at an example of how you can set up internet monitoring on a network. So this diagram here shows a very typical setup. We've got a core switch, other switches here shown on the left, we got routers, so we've got a lot going on. Well, what you simply need to do is just focus in on where your firewall is. So this is it here, shown with this case it's the Cisco ASA firewall. And it's connected into a switch here, which then links back to the core. So to get internet monitoring set up on this network, what I would do is I would probably rack in here a server. In this case, it's a Dell server, install my software onto this server here. I need to cable in two network points. So one here goes into free switch port here. So what I need to do is take note of this here. So just take note of the number port that you plugged into. You also need to plug in a second cable. Now, you can plug it into the same switch, or it can also go into your core switch. You don't really need to worry too much about that. This is the one that's used for the management of the LangGuardian. What you also then need to trace back, got a port here coming back up to the switch, plugged in here. So you need to take note of what port on the switch that your firewall connects back to. So in my case here, what I'm going to do is my firewall is connected to Gigabit Ethernet 0/21. And my LangGuardian sensor port is connected to Gigabit Ethernet 0/4. So on a Cisco switch, to set up monitoring, what you need to do is issue these two commands. In global configuration mode, monitor session 1 source interface Gigabit Ethernet 0/21 and put both at the end. And monitor session 1 destination interface Gigabit 0/4. So let me log on to a switch and show you how it's set up. So first thing I'm going to do is telnet onto that particular switch on my network. So we just put in the IP address here. Just choose here to use telnet. Just open that up. So we've now got a prompt here to log on. And I'm logged on to my course, well in this case the Cisco 3750 is on the previous diagram. So I go into enable mode. And then I go into configuration mode. But just before you do that, if you issue the command show mon, just check if you've got monitoring already set up. Now I already have some monitoring here. I'm monitoring some VLAN, so I'm using up here session 1. So I now know I'm going to use session 2 for the next monitoring setup on this particular switch. So I go into configuration mode. And I now enter the following 2 commands. So monitor session 2 source interface. This happens to be a fast Ethernet one, 0/21. So that's what we've identified. That's where the firewall is plugged in. Put both at the end. That just means we want to monitor traffic in both directions. Then we do monitor session 2 destination interface fast Ethernet 0/4. So that's where the LAN Guardian is plugged in. And that's it, it's done. So there's no interruption to the network, there's no disconnecting cables to the firewall. You now have monitoring set up. So we just type in there, just write that to memory, just make sure we don't lose it. And then we just double check show them on. And on session 2 here, source ports is the firewall, destination ports the LAN Guardian. That's fine, that's all set up. So we're now monitoring everything that's going in and out of our internet connection. If you want to find out what's happening on your internet connection, please visit www.netfort.com, where you can download a free trial today.